Hello, hello, hello. Hi there. This is just me, and welcome to a Friday live stream. Um, we're, we're going to be using the new formats starting next month, and the book, and I'll have a different variety of them. You'll be seeing the change of the header a little bit. Things have a little bit changed. No more old messing around. And things like that. There's going to be an alteration. We're going to still be doing it at the time. Uh, Today it's 4 p.m. Eastern Central Time. No. It should be 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. In Central European Time, it's 4 now because it's we're not. There's a disconnect between the daylight saving time in the U.S. versus what the time set it in Europe. This is Good Friday, so we have a kind of disconnect here. So a disconnect in the sense that I'm on the road. I'm not at my usual office. I'm visiting my mother-in-law with my wife and family, spending for Easter, and therefore I am doing this on the fly. Um, and I can't even use the normal room I use for this because people want to watch television. So usually when I do this, they're on the road or doing something out of the house. So now I'm in in that in a room I don't usually use for these kind of things. That's not necessarily the best room to use. So what to do? What to do? We're going to be dealing today is it's Good Friday in Europe, in the Christian world, which is the day Jesus, Christ is crucified. And okay, let's see if I can get this a little more centered. I'm using my university laptop, and things are going to be weird. And I have no set themes or topics today. I didn't plan on this. I was going to do a pre-recording thing, but I said I can do this. I can do a short live stream in case anyone comes in. I don't think anyone's going to be here. They have other things to do. So hurrah! We're getting ready for the new format. It's in April for the live streams. I have set up. I did some editing and things like this. We're still doing for the recordings of things where are you a peanut or a walnut? I'm a neither. Someone asked a peanut or a walnut. No. Well, that's a silly thing to ask. What about this? This is the big problem. The big problem is getting ready for the new seasons of doing the sessions. I'm finishing up the Aristotle's Politics. There will be a drop today at 6 p.m. My time, noon time, Eastern Standard Time for maybe it's not noon time, it'll be 5 because of disconnect of the video on the current issue of Aristotle's Politics, looking at, I think it's still doing book 6. Finishing, it's in probably middle of book 6. And we're going to be today just talking about themes that arise that happened during the week. This week I had no university, just my Norwich class in that sense. Do I have a thick shell or a hard shell? The peanut walnut comment it's kind of like a esoteric question, right? What about what's going on in the live stream? I mean, what's going on in my Norwich class? We're just doing it. We have 2 students. I wish it was we had a couple more. It'd be little more effective. It is not the most effective way to teach just two students. It's not cost effective in that sense. But what else? I know I posted 5 episodes of the recordings of my introduction to politics lecture that I'm doing this year. I dumped them on the system before coming to that this past Sunday before my road trip. Some of the I think I'm going to have to go edit them again for some context to put the syllabus on it. Someone asked for the syllabus, and I said originally I didn't want to put the syllabus because the syllabus wouldn't translate well in the system. But I was going to originally put the syllabus in it, but it didn't format correctly, and I had to redo it without having the formatting I used for it, because the formatting doesn't stay in the text. It just screws up. Preparing for new video series. I think I will be doing it's either after the Aristotle's Ethics. I might do the Human Ethics. No, I said I'd do the Prince. Peanuts have beautiful flowers. Well, true. Okay, yeah, whatever. Peanuts have beautiful flowers. So I promised everyone I would be doing the Prince, so probably will do the Prince. I'll do the run through the Prince, or I might do something different. I might break it up a little bit. I am thinking about doing Eudaimon Ethics and then Cicero's Diophaces. I'll have to break up Diophaces in a little bit more effective way than I currently can do. It has 3 books. It's doing this way. I thought about doing Cicero's De Animica, How to Be a Friend, which is an interesting thing about this. And it's particularly going to be interesting to talk about this when we cover books 8 and 9 of the Ethics, Aristotle's Ethics, which deal with friendship, which is very interesting and important in the history of political thinking in that sense, that civic friendship. Here's the other thing. This is Cicero's on duties. This is the translation. Probably will use Patrick Newton's. I could use the Cambridge edition, but again, this is only 3 books. I have to break it up into the more organized. If I did each book, it'd be like an hour. So I'm going to have to break it up into more reasonable, logical threads. We are nuts here. So what about why we're here today and what's going on? Well, again, we are focused on the question of we're finishing the ethics. That's going to be an interesting thing. This was the week on Sunday. What happened this week Sunday? Laurie Johnson released her video interview with me, and I cross-published it also on the website, which we had our hour-long discussion on Aristotle and why Aristotle is interesting in Aristotle and others. And I think it brought some more video people to come to the site and look at it. So hopefully more will watch it. I should do more other groups and things like outreach. It's been kind of like slow. So that's the crust of we're in 10 minutes into not even 10 minutes into the live stream and just talking about it. It's kind of odd. I don't usually use the headset, and it's strange talking to you guys doing this because I get that feeling. I don't usually have the earplugs in it. So when I have the earbuds and talk with the earbuds, it's kind of strange. I don't know how people have to do this for a living. Do it because I sound like I'm deep in the water. So it's Good Friday. Okay, this is people are going to be here. People are going to be going to. Most Christians are going to be going to see family during Easter, going to either the Easter week, Easter activities. And where I live in Poland, people going. It's the big holiday. It's one of two big holidays. They even had Easter Monday, and that's the American tradition of Easter doesn't really have Easter Monday. The German and the European tradition does not only Easter but Easter Monday, particularly in Catholic Europe. So there is this sense of we had so therefore couldn't do the normal activities. As I said, there was no school this week at my Washington University, so it was like, ooh, break. I haven't heard from my published 2 articles yet. One of the articles should have been released in March. They said it'd be published in March, and it wasn't published yet. So I'm kind of worried about there's going to be a delay on that. And I haven't heard back from the editor of the other item that I accepted like in January. And I haven't heard one thing back from, so I'm a little nervous. And a piece that I sent out to someone they said, oh, no, we have to dumb it down if I'm going to publish it for there. And I was like, I have to think about it. I'm going to go look at it some more. And I'm still working on the Constitution, the 4 micro changes of the American Constitution that someone just said I'm giving up Twitter for Lent and return back to reading. I mean, Twitter is Twitter. I mean, I don't care. I only use Twitter only as a mechanism of just broadcasting something for people and to check out what to check out other reading things are, not really just. But again, the purpose of what we do here is thematic in that sense. I was hoping to have somebody, one of my usual crowd people brought in some topics. This week, there was nothing, no specific topic requested, and it's like Easter. Easter's been a big thing here, and everyone has got their little things. And like I said, no classes. And I was like, this. I've been waiting for just get some publication stuff ready, but I had to go travel. I was trying to get some things done and kind of like frustrated in that sense. I got some notes and things, so that's been a little bit interesting. Today I was going to do this. I wasn't going to do live stream really, but I said I promised I'd do it, so I do it, and I made the format, and I'm kind of in an awkward position. I have no preparation. It hit on me. I said, "Oh my God, it's already time. I have to go online and do it." And I didn't really plan on doing it. I was going to do it later, or maybe even do a pre-record. But no, I'm here, so I kept my promise to you guys and do it regular time, regular fashion. Well, let's talk about this. One of the things I've been thinking about this past week has been the frustration of looking at the question of the political in our time, in that sense. The political right now is in a crisis in that sense. The crisis of the political is that we're going from the question is, are we really transitioning from a parochial or national or world of nations to a global world? And I am not convinced that global politics is ever possible. Global citizenship is ever possible. Global hegemony may be possible, and hegemonic rule be possible, but political life is always a macro phenomenon. And that's the difference between, let's say, the ancient and modern world here. So that's why we're doing this in that sense, trying to reflect on these themes. I lost my 2 people, I think, that were here, and I don't blame them for going because it's a lazy day. It's a lazy day with nothing really to talk about. I could talk about some interesting things. But there's nothing really. What is interesting? There was I was trying to think about interesting articles out there. Nothing was so outstanding in that sense. Was there any good videos? I've been trying to follow what some of the internet people doing. It's just like it's Gamergate 2.0, and that's not really. I think this is a kind of a repeating of the other themes, just looking at it from like 10 years later, like a 10 year after original Gamergate, we're going to get Gamergate 2.0 with a kind of extreme situation. I don't know it's any different. So I've always argued that Gamergate was very important as a moment of awareness, but it ultimately led to a kind of did it win? No, it didn't win. This is the problem, and actually, this is what I will talk about in that sense. I was thinking about one of the things I've been thinking about is the problems of conflict, of these changes of things. And one of the things I thought about was like watching events in Poland, watching events of things like this in America, the use of by which a political group uses the legal system as a weapon to achieve control and domination. And law has always been a tool of the political of politics. You have to always remember that law is not a neutral thing. Law is a tool, and as a tool, it's used for both good and evil in that sense, good, right, and wrong, justice and injustice, as any tool is. And tools are neutral in terms of that. It's the actors and the actors and what their intentions are that shapes the use of what something's good or bad. So I've been thinking about this because I was thinking about the question of I kind of in economics. There's a concept called in economic and monetary stuff. It's called Grisham's law. It's in finance. It's in finance management, economics. Grisham's law, which is in Poland. In Poland, the term they don't call it Grisham's law. They call it Copernicus's law, which is bad money chases out good money, right? And I've always argued that Grisham's law was a universal principle, that it's bad practices, but once successful, when you use something, when you cheat, or you break something, or a bad practice, something what is against the bad, but once it becomes beneficial, that it becomes beneficial, and that what happens is then all the players will use it. Once something is done, and it was something we shouldn't do, something was we that was bad, it was considered bad, and we didn't accept it. It was taboo, or something like that. It was not an accepted practice. But what happens is that it becomes beneficial for the party who engages it, and the party who engages it gets a benefit. Then what happens is everyone else will imitate it, act that way. Will do likewise, because in other words, the game has changed, the balance of the things, and this explains why. Why there's bad practices. We know this. Once a bad practice gets advantages, everyone will do that bad practice. So because why? It becomes the path of use. If you don't do it, if it's successful, therefore the person who does it gets competitive advantage, and therefore, in a sense, the other competitors don't want to. It's like if I won't do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm a good guy. I'm not going to do that. Well, then you're going to be the loser. You lose. And in many ways, this is what's wrong with the kind of conservatism in that sense that complains about, no, we got to be civil and things like we shouldn't engage in lawfare. We shouldn't ballot harvest. We shouldn't do these kind of things. It's not right. We should be more civilized. But that's a losing strategy because the enemy is not this. We should. George Santos is bad, and George Santos is a liar, and we should get rid of him. but Democrats don't get rid of their bad guys. Okay, no, and if people aren't playing by the same rules, it is stupid to play. In other words, it is stupid to play by a set of rules that is higher. In other words, that disadvantage you. Oh, but it's noble and just. No, there's nothing noble about being exterminated or losing, being defeated and being ruled by bad people. Okay, there's nothing noble about it. There's nothing good about it. Being ruled by the bad and being ruled by the base, being ruled by the vicious is not allowing the vicious and the base to rule. Oh, but we lost ourselves. You know, this is the problem. There's consequences to winning. Always, there's always going to be consequences. Things are going to have to change. Now, one of the things about this is Grisham's law is I think Grisham's laws applies to political behavior, and I understand this now. But this also explains the problem is that what if things have, in other words, the only time that something, and this is the opposite argument of what was it Robert Axelrod in his book Evolution of Cooperation highlights, is that okay, cooperation is possible when both parties benefit, right? But when when do you get this? In other words, but it could be the inverse. In other words, what happens when this eye for an eye, everyone become blind, right? Well, yeah, but until people recognize that negative externality, that everyone will become blind, then they will abstain. All need to abstain from an eye for an eye. In other words, that's the whole point. Until things you have to do what the other side does to the point where everyone so hates it. This is kind of what Hobbes says in the social contract, right? That people will only agree not to do something when they all see that they're all terrified of the condition of what this practice has done. And only when they recognize by quit not engaging in that, surrendering that claim, right, to do that practice or thing, that can their safety and security and their well-being be returned. That's the logic of how he gets out. Hobbes's logic about the formation of the social contract in the state of nature is a rational. It makes sense, and I think that it's true in this sense. Is it true that this is how society is formed? I don't think so. I think that this is where I would disagree with Hobbes. I don't think I don't think the social is a purely constructual entity, purely constructual, and that it's totally artificial. Yes, the political function is instrumental in this sense, and it is something constructed. Elements of it are the desire for it is natural, political, but the need for it is something that is in our nature, fulfill our natures. But the means in the physical, institutional, and structural things are a product of our making. In that sense, this is the famous. It's not a fusus, nature versus convention or artificiality. It's a middle ground where something that is designed or planned. In other words, nature just intends it, but it requires human action to fulfill it. Example of this is that in my Laurie Johnson discussion, I talked about beaver dams and beehives. Right? These are constructed things, but at the same time, they're necessary for the survival and well-being of the both beavers or for beaver dams and beehives and ant colonies. In other words, this is something about social animals. Social animals have to create the framework. Social or political animals need a framework embodiment of a community that becomes the habitat by which their natures can fulfill themselves. So therefore, there is these laws of limits. Okay, these laws in that sense exist. taking advantage that your enemy can't capitalize on how victory is obtained. Imagine if our side didn't do that. Don't imagine. Do. Okay. Taking advantage. Okay. Now this is the problem. This is the. Another J on this is like I put a couple posts on here that politics is war. Politics is not. No, this is. Politics is not war. I think Claude was right. War is politics by other means. Okay, it's politics is a more war is simply the application of violence and force to accomplish what you want. It's just killing, violence, force to get what you want. It's pure coercion. Politics is not pure coercion. Politics. This is to say that politics and war are equal, and that's why Clausewitz's point about politics, war being a politics in another form, is kind of relevant to the misperception of authoritarian structures in that sense. In other words, that politics isn't it's by other means. Okay, other means. In other words, and the other means is a type of rule. And right, the second point is taking an advantage that your enemy can't capitalize is how victory is obtained. Right? He said, yeah, that's true. This is true. Victory is important. Winning is important. Winning is important. And winning is important in the sense, but also winning well. In other words, it's not winning for winning's sake. This is the big problem, right? Winning for winning's sake. What do you want to win, though? Dude, that's the other problem. This is the qualifying thing. Winning is important. This is the danger. This is always the danger of when conflict, existential conflict happens. Die or die, survival and this kind of extensive thing. This is why war is such destructive. It forces us to go to its most extreme situation. It's an extremis. It is the problem. But see, this is what I think. This is why I'm looking using Grisham's law here. Is that this is the danger that once the bad practices come in and that the other side does it, this becomes it's a spiral down to the abyss. It becomes a spiral down to the abyss. And then once you hit the abyss, you're in the state of nature that Hobbes talked about. This, and I think the sedition that Hobbes Hobbes's discussion of the state of nature as the state of war. I think this is where I think Hobbes is right about what it would be like in that condition. The state of war, the state of total war, of chaos, where anarchy, where there's no authority and there's only one will imposing its will on another will, and it is the war against all. This is psychologically, this is so how it is that everyone would seek to escape it in that sense, and it's only then that in other words, there's nothing wrong with the reasoning. I think Hobbes gets something right, but he's wrong about what he's talking about in a sense. I don't think that's the origin, and I think Rousseau gets this. Rousseau's critique of Hobbes here is correct. That Hobbes says that the willingness to fight and the willingness to to protect one's own and to wage aggression is a product of sociality, and that this is not natural man. Natural man would flee in that sense, simply. That's Rousseau's critique in the second discourse of Hobbes. And I think Rousseau is correct here. And this is why what Hobbes describes isn't properly the state of nature as he originally describes, that man is with the original point of man. Rather, this is a state of man with the breakdown of society. In other words, that the social, political, that there was man, and that man is without the network of community and in other words, the social the order that which humans exists has been destroyed, and that everyone is acting to their worst possible capacity to preserve their interest. This is, I think Hobbes gets this right, and I think Aristotle would actually agree with Hobbes on this point, that in that absence of in that situation where order, that social order and social, it's pure anarchy in a sense. That in this anarchy, I'm sorry, I get the cameras, I got to get myself in the film. The anarchy in a sense, the anarchy of that moment. This will be so horrible in that sense, that everyone can do to everyone else, where power goes on power and desire goes on desire, and there's no judge on this. That we've so succumbed to destroy, not concern ourselves with the common. It's only mine, me, in my interest or my group's interest. That this destroys the order that makes civility, humanity possible. And therefore, Hobbes isn't totally wrong here on the logic of the mechanisms of this, but this is not the origins. This is the breakdown, and it will explain what will happen. In other words, the nature of the bad practices that break down the system, stasis. In fact, remember, we have to always remember Hobbes's best guide. It's Thucydides. Thucydides' Peloponnese War. And what the Peloponnese War does is it breaks down the Greek social order. The famous example of Korea, the stasis or the civil war that happens in Korea, the city that starts this war. And how the war between the the oligarchs and the many, and the viciousness of that thing leads to this description of the civil war, and the death of that horrible description of the breakdown of society and the breakdown of all order that Thucydides describes about that civil war. As a product of the unleashing of the factions. Okay, this is good. That the difference between politics and war is quantitative, not no, I disagree. It is Aristotle was right about this. It is not just the size of it. It's the quality. The quality difference is the degree of enmity. No, it's not only degree, it's total. In other words, total limited. No, I think that's the problem, is that to understand this as merely a size thing is to make the mistake that analogous, that in other words, there's no harmony. There's no harmony in the social order. There's only conflict. There's only violence. That is absurd. And then politics can only be violence and rape and murder and killing and coercion. There's no competitive, there's no moment of shared advantage and shared unity, no possibility of friendship. In other words, once the koinonia has, once the koinonia of reciprocity has broken down, this is this rise of stasis and faction. Once we no longer see each other as fellow citizens and fellow sharers of our community, once we see them as the enemy, then that logic is correct in that sense. It becomes agonistic. But the political environment isn't automatically antagonistic. It is as much deliberative as it is antagonistic. The antagonistic is the breakdown of it. It will have to use sometimes force in order to correct itself, but it can't use force to maintain to always maintain itself, or to justify or its raison for being in that sense. This is the problem here. This is the difference, is that because once you accept that it is that all politics is this kind of agonistic thing, you enter the postmodern position of accepting that all social things are coercion. This is the feminists, Andrea Dworkin's point that given the difference of man and female, there's no equality, no something like this. Therefore, all heterosexual relationships are rape, right? That's Andrea Dworkin's famous, infamous line about that. Well, yeah, the logic of that is that if you can't have perfect equality, perfect benefit, but this is not what is necessary for koinonia. It's proportional. That everyone shares some level of benefit. That once you're in the community and you see yourselves as fellows and friends and fellow sharers of a community, then that is what holds it together. This is what civic life is. Civic life isn't slavery. Civic life isn't slavery in the sense. Slavery is, in other words, this is why Aristotle insists that in Book 1 that to argue, in fact, the argument that another J argues about war is the very argument that Aristotle in Book 1, Chapter 1 of the Politics explicitly denies. Anyone who argues that the master of slaves, the head of a household, the politicos and the monarch are all the same, it's just size, is wrong, because these are different kinds of rule. That these are qualitatively different, and that it's the quality of how one is ruling is different. I've talked about this in previous videos in this sense, but this is war is the opposite. It's the inverse of that. If koinonia or community is the character of when ruling is happening, then war is the total breakdown of the system. That's the negative. It's the positive versus the negative. And Grisham's law, I think, is explaining the logic or the rational behavior of this is the argument. This is what is it? There's a very good book, Predictive Irrationality. It's a very good book, Predictive Irrationality. You want to understand why bad behavior happens. Well, it's because the incentives are in there. You created a set of the conditions and incentives that cost benefit, that the actors will always pursue bad behavior in that sense, because the bad behavior is rewarded and the good behavior is not rewarded or punished or something, and then therefore you get more of the bad. You want to make good behavior, well, you have to change the incentive structures and reward structures to get the different set of rewards. So therefore, it's a question of this. This is why, in many ways, that once we said, and this is what's interesting in this. This is maybe, so we have the nexus of how human behavior. Why do people want to get into community? Well, yes, it's beneficial. We want human beings want to be with each other. We're social. We only fulfill our natures within families, and we seek the other. We seek a community. We seek to share lives, and we only become fully human in these networks of associations. It's pleasant to be with human beings. It can be also bad. If human beings are bad actors, they're monsters, then you want to flee them. If they're beasts, this is the difference: the human and the bestial. The bestial is like the human can be either. What is it, that line that that the human is the middle ground between beasts and gods, right? This is that problem, that we can be either godlike, divine-like creatures or beast-like creatures, right? And in fact, that is the famous line of the Politics too, that gods and beasts don't need cities, don't need the political. It's humans who need the political in that sense. And the back, but Grisham's law analogy here explains this. I mean, this is the point. And right. I mean, I will grant you that taking advantage of the previous post by another J is absolutely right to say that we need, in order to win, in order to survive, we might have to take advantage of the things that the other enemy doesn't. That's right. There is a benefit of surviving. Because life, and it's another thing Aristotle says, that the natural sweetness of life, right? But what happens when life is no longer sweet? When the pain of life and the pain of things are just so horrible that it becomes no longer something sweet and beneficial. It becomes an odiousness towards it. Uh, this is the problem. This is the moment when the question is that the continuation of a thing isn't no longer beneficial in that sense. Everything leads to their limit. Everything dies. Everything, even communities, human beings, the body will die. All things that come into being and pass away will cease to be. There's limits. There's always limits in the sense. There's always cost and benefits, and that this is the nature of the human in that sense. The understanding the limits, and this is the limits of the political too. The limits of the political is you can't do everything. This is the limits of power too. This is the other thing. There's a point, if there's a moment of trying to control things, that there's a kind of diminishing, the law of diminishing. I mean, I'm going to use economics here. The law of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, there's a certain point where even power is subject. Power, and what is power? Power is getting what you want. It's the means to get what you want. That's all it means. And there's many ways of getting what you want, direct and indirect. Okay, that power is merely the ways of getting what you want. It is merely the power to act and to do, to get others to act and to do, to get what you want. Okay, what you desire, the things you desire, and the ability to achieve it. Okay, but like anything of what you want, a good or benefit or utility that you want, there's a point of diminishing marginal returns, that the effort necessary, the cost of what you're doing compared to the benefit, that what happens, it's at a certain point, the cost will, going backwards here, the cost will get to a point, and then all of a sudden, okay, the return level is no longer higher. It's not getting 1 for 1 or 1 to 3. In other words, the rate of return, it's all of a sudden it becomes negative. That for every effort, you don't get as much as that, you get less. Or maybe you get a point where there's even at a point where if the more you get it, the more you try this, that all of a sudden you hit a point, then instead of getting more higher benefit, you start getting diminishing. We see this in drug use. This is the problem in drug use. At a certain point, you get used to the drugs, and you don't get this. This is people this is marijuana users who and other drug users who have to take more and more and more and more to get the same initial high they got at earlier stages. Right? That this is the same. This is the same thing with any kind of pleasures, any kind of sensation. There's a certain moment where you can get. This is the problem with the passions and sensations. At a certain level, you get so satiated, it burns out. You get no return anymore. And what happens when your senses are burnt out? You don't feel the plant. You don't feel. You get no inputs. You just feel nothing. Okay. You ever see a recovered drunk junkie or recovered alcoholic in that sense? They don't have the capacity of feelings that those who don't have it. Why? Because they have burnt out the capacity. Their sensations are no longer able to achieve those are no sensations. And this is that point where you went over, and this is the limits to things. And all things have limits, like and the state power too. The state cannot do everything. The political community, you cannot use government and the tools to demand more and more and more from it. It's going to get a limit. It's going to not be able to deliver. It's not going to be able to deliver what you designed for it in that sense. You're going to not be able to deliver or produce what you wanted to do it for it. It's going to fail. And that's going to be the crux of the problem here. So therefore, there is laws of political behavior. There's constants. And that we have to understand the nature of these constants in that sense. And I'm thinking about this. One of the things I wanted to be doing with when my friend Trevor gets back from his Midwest convention paper conference, to really struggle on the question of care, and kind of maybe do a little book on the forms of rule. But then the flip side of the forms of rule would be the forms of the kind of the norms of political, the kind of patterns of the political about human behavior, certain patterns of certain types of norms that happen in human behavior, like Grisham's law. Regression to the mean. Regression to the mean is, I see this. You look at human behaviors. Um, it's monkey see, monkey do. Right? Monkey see, monkey do. People want to will imitate the. In other words, people. You want to. I see this as a teacher when I give a test or something like this. You get regression to the mean. It all depends on where the mean is. Everything will move towards it in that sense. All political actors will move towards it. All people behavior, contact behavior, move toward the mean. Haiti. Well, that's the break of political order. Haiti is. He goes up there and he goes, "What about Haiti?" Well, Haiti was a situation where it was a failed state. It was always failed. It failed. It never able to really establish it. The slave rebellion did it. It didn't produce a stable society. The fact that the French demanded that they pay, onerous. Only by the 20th century did they finally pay off the debt of emancipation to the French state. David Starkey is absolutely right about this. We want to say, how dare anyone talk about the British colonial past? The British, being under a British colony was night and day different, better than being colonized by the Belgians, the French, or the Spanish, or the Germans. If you were colonized by any one of those, you were fucked. Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, okay. Dutch were not the worst, but the Belgians, Belgian Congo, the French, left every place they governed basically a mess. Haiti is the perfect example of the way the French botched it. And then they never benefited, never stabilized, they never had a stable economy, they never had a stable state. And what happened every time the international community came in there and did things, it made it worse and worse and worse and worse. Haiti was a perfect example. Compare Haiti is two parts of, it is the island that Columbus discovered, right? It's two parts. One was the Spanish side the Dominican Republic was by no means better ruled, but the French side was taken over. Ironically, the outcome of the French side was far worse than the outside of the Spanish side. The complete breakdown of the order in that sense. Chaos and gangs will assert themselves. Yes, because that's the war of anarchy in that sense. Gangs taking over and the international community to form a new. There's never going to form a new government because until the parties agree to be a community, they're just going to kill each other. Now, the best way you can do this is to either you impose order. You have to impose order. That'll be artificial, and that will constantly be kind of a colony. But no one accepts colony. They want to create a government. But the problem with the government is that it will always be captured by a faction. In other words, the Haitian society is so fractured and divided and resentful of each other, and that they're so divided and hating of each other that they can't even get along. Okay, that's even the problem in that sense. Until they get along, until they can form a community, until they want to live together and share a life together, they're always going to be their faction. And that if you try to impose this is what failed in Africa, and why Africa always collapses, is because there's no civil society. There's no civil society. And that's a civil society is a common political community of people who see themselves as fellow citizens, and not just merely legal positions, but they see themselves as people of the same group, and they're my fellows of my community. They're sharers of this thing. And that until you have that sense of the political, of being a civic order, a civil entity, that I am a people, we are a people, we are one. You don't have that we, then it's going to be what's going to happen. If you have the state governmental structure of a we, but not the social construction of the we, what will happen is the factions will merely grab or control the instruments of state power and use it for their faction or tribe or ethnic, their clan or group at the expense of the group, okay, as the whole community. This happens in Africa. This happens in lots of Asia. Okay, the gangs have formed this truce. It's possible that a new order could come from the union of the two major crimes. Yeah, but the problem with that would be that they why don't you just divide syndicates into two different regions? And the question is, will the people tolerate the syndicates? It's just, that's the problem with that. That is the Middle Ages. I don't think the political world we live in, it will accept the Middle Ages again. We won't. We forced. The international community is always going to demand a liberal order. It's going to demand women's rights. All these things. That's why Afghanistan failed. This is why every attempt here has failed in that sense, because it's we at our stage of political development demand people who are thousands of years behind immediately adopt the positions that we ourselves had to evolve into. The Haitians are not as advanced from a point of civilization and organization. They're living back in the Middle Ages. Actually, the collapse of the 6th century, 7th century, maybe 8th century Europe. The utter collapse of that, in that sense, collapse of a political order. And that you're going to have the creation of these gangs and warlords taking over. The problem is, will the international community have the stomach to allow it to happen? At the same time, the problem is that there's going to be too much incentive for those who don't want to stay to flee elsewhere, okay? And the question is the cost they impose on other people. That's the problem. The question is that, will we tolerate the cost? Can we tolerate the cost of their disorder? This is why that's why imperialism might have to happen in this situation. That you're going to have, to prevent the negative effects of migration that will happen in that chaos of that crime order. The warlords? Why would what would the Romans do? Ask yourself what the Romans would do, what the Carthaginians would have done back then. They would have went there and they would have killed off the crime, the warlords, and they would make the order. Okay, that's why it is a compliment. We don't have the stomach for that. We don't. Oh my God, we want the goods. In other words, this is the hypocrisy. This is the kind of situation we're in. We want the goodies of a liberal civilization, but we don't necessarily want to pay the necessary, breaking the eggs necessary, and take the steps and follow the recipe of what creates a stable liberal society. They just want presto, magic liberal society. Wishful. It's wish thinking. My wife talks about this. Today, the people of today, and particularly in advanced civilized world, live in a world of fantasy thinking. They think they want something and they can just get it, and it can happen magically. And they have no desire they have no willingness to put any effort to pay for the costs. Yes, the temporary truce is always going to happen, because what's going to happen is the gang lords are trying to restart and recomplies and until they get to a conflict, right? Yes, you can get a situation where the gang lords get peace, but the question is, okay, that's the Middle Ages, right? Isn't that the Middle Ages? Isn't that the origins of this? And the question is, when does a gang lord quit being a gang lord and becomes that's a problem. This is the difference, and this is something Max Weber talks about. And I don't want to go too far into this, because it's the difference between a pure patrimonial ruler. By patrimony, I mean this sense is that I view this as my property. This is mine. Okay. Mine to exploit, to use to benefit my benefit. And the people there are just my property, or if they're not my property, they're tools that I can use. They're just inconveniences that I have to deal with in order to either I can get them to serve me, or I will just have their inconveniences that I have to just deal with. Right? This is the patrimony. In other words, you don't the patrimonial ruler views the product as his mere extension of his property and his will of himself, that this is his property, this is his, and he can do with it as he wills. Then there is the other conception, the idea of a ruler as shepherd, caretaker, that this is not his, it belongs to somebody else. He has responsibility for it. He's a shepherd, a caretaker. Or you can look at the father figure that is yours. There are that's the shepherd. The mastery is that's mine. I'm going to take this like this. The mastery view. The shepherd view is a caretaker, the pure person who sacrifices his benefit, because this is pure kind of agape thinking. And then the third way is kind of what we call the father figure, right? The father who loves his children and will ultimately rules them he sees them, he doesn't want to do harm for them. Again, that's kind of like this. I think he says, I think Haiti is going to be like the Holy Roman Empire. No. You think it's broken up into things. I think a skeptical that I don't think that you can break it up. It's not too small. It's too chaotic. It's always going to be. The Holy Roman Empire is much more complicated construction because of the way it could happen, but given technology and given the means of communication, in other words, the Holy Roman Empire could only happen because it didn't have mass communication, mass transit. In other words, that the speed of information and the speed of enforcement and mobility of things and the resources of that was limited by the means of transportation and community at the time that allowed for that kind of sharpening in a world of mass communication and that we live in digital age and digital communication. There's going to be the opposite. In other words, the medieval world was large. Technology has shrunk the world, and therefore it's not going to be possible to deal with that because there's going to be cameras. This is what in 1990s we talked about this. This was the Sarajevo effect. What was the difference between why the global community was so shocked at Sarajevo versus kind of ignored what happened in Rwanda? Because there was cameras there. There was the global internet, the global communication world saw it live, saw the slaughter and murder of women and children live, where in Rwanda it happened after the effect, right? And that this is the weird thing is that the way communication matters changes our sympathy towards things. Well, we used to only feel sympathy to what we can experience, right? That was the point. We know that there's, Adam Smith said about, there's millions of people dying in China, but we only care about the seeing of what we experience. That's true. But what happens when you can experience the global world? And I think the problem with between gangs is that gangs are not going to be a stable political environment because they're patrimonial, they're unstable. The gang situation and gang leaders and who becomes a gang leader, and particularly with dealing with drugs and violence, it's unstable. It's a not stable political system. It is not a stable system. It's going to always be resting on violence. And because it's resting on violence, it's never going to be stable enough to provide the ability to emerge into civil society. Okay, that's what led for the European move from patrimonial thing to civil society was kind of a breathing room. And the fact that there was Christianity there. Christianity mediated the viciousness of this. I'm sorry, the religious of hate, the NATO religious of Haiti sangria and these things don't produce. It doesn't produce healthy civic life. Okay. If you look at the theology of the Haitian populations and sangria and these things, these really point to something that. So, can you get a health? Can religion? Does the native religiosity, help you form the basis? Because there is this. Because what is civil society but a kind of piety? It's faithfulness, updating faithfulness. One could argue what made possible the European possibility of civil society was Christianity. Yes, it destroyed a previous one, but it humanized it. Two things we could argue. I think two things kind of humanitize the brutes, the barbarians. Montesquieu argues it's commerce, but I also think Christianity. And I think this is also, in Montesquieu also says this too. Religion and commerce are the two powerful things that shape mores, that shapes the character of peoples. And therefore that will determine whether if you have the proper mechanisms to do both, then you can create a people who are open to being civilized, and versus those who are not. They will never be. They can never be, and therefore they have to be. They're going to be human beings, and tribes and populations, because they're so formed. They're how they evolved and how their culture has emerged make them so ungovernable, and that they have to be ruled by the most vicious means possible. Again, read Montesquieu. Montesquieu talks about the why certain populations are ruled the way they are. Now we say, "Oh my God, this is ethnocentrism," but no, there's truth to this. We have to understand that in that sense. We have to accept that not everyone can be. That the conditions, in other words, the conditions in evolutionary process to get us to that state would require the same conditions in evolutionary process to. In those situations. So Haiti might have to be governed by other people, coerced, so that their disorder doesn't spread. But the problem is that we won't tolerate that. So in other words, they will always be this broken down situation. Their disease, they will spread elsewhere. Their populations will go and then destabilize those areas. And that's how the system works in that sense. This is why it continual in that sense. This is why you have to kind of fight against that in that sense. Okay, but that's the whole point of Good Friday, right? We think about the Savior of the world dying on the cross, right? That's the God is crucified. God crucifies himself. Allows himself to be crucified. God manifests himself in incarnation and then is crucified. This is the. I'm going to use the word myth here. I don't want to. But this is this is the understanding of what's going on. That the most omnipotent power himself, God, embodies, becomes man, submits to death in order to defeat death. Okay, this is why the Christian cross is so transformative. It's not this is kind of the ultimate judicial, right? Satan gets to kill God, but in doing so is defeated, right? That's the whole point. And that's the message we should think about on Good Friday, in that sense, and coming Easter. It's that evil gets to kill God, right? That's the whole point. That God is killed. But does this defeat God? No, he wins. He wins his greatest victory. The cross is not a sign of genocide and mass murder, because what it is, of course, is a mechanism of Roman mass murder. It's like Auschwitz. It's a death camp. It's a symbol of death and torture. A slow and painful death. A slow and painful death to show Roman power, and that this symbol of inhumane murder is transformed into a sign of hope. It shows that this is the tension of the human in that sense, between the bestial and the divine, I'd like to end on that thought. So that's the end of this. This is Good Friday. I hope you guys have those of you who are Christians have a good Easter break, a time in here, and hope you enjoy your families and friends. If you liked it, hit the like button. I'm probably not going to get that many likes on this one. This is just a kind of odd video in that terms, because I promised things, I'd do it. I kept my promise. If you didn't like it, you can always thumb down it. Okay, whatever. It helps. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Encourage others to subscribe. You can follow me on social media. My social media links are below. You can follow my academic social media below that. We can find more about me as a scholar. You can help me if you want to contribute to this. You can do so through Patreon or Subscribestar, or buy one of my books and buy it either at your local bookstore or through Amazon or things like that, online server in that sense, or buy it through the publisher. Well, that's it. I hope again, thank you for being here, and that's over. Take care. Bye-bye. Good day. Happy Easter.